Okay, we're live here on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Welcome to Women in Action. And in today's episode, I am thrilled to introduce Dani Goeppert, founder of Arisen Events, a powerhouse in the world of virtual summits and online events. Dani specializes in turning digital events into meaningful, profitable connections for her clients. And as a Christian entrepreneur like me, Dani knows firsthand the balancing act of running successful business while managing family life. Today, she's here to share her wisdom on how you, as a speech therapist, looking to start or grow your private practice, can leverage virtual events to attract clients, showcase your expertise, and create sustainable business growth. So I'm really excited to have Dani. But before I start, you'll notice that down below, I've got an event happening this weekend. So if you want to come to that, I've left the link in the description and it's down below for those who are thinking of starting their own private practice. So without further ado, let's get stuck into the interview. Hi, Dani.
Hi, Bev. It's so lovely to be here.
Oh, it's lovely to have you. And I've been following you for a while, and it's lovely to have another fellow Christian. So tell me where you're from, first of all, and a little bit about your life and your business before we get stuck into the meaty stuff.
Sure. So a little bit about me. I am originally from Canada. I live in Austria, though, wearing a little bit of my Austrian flair in the countryside, a little village. So there's the cows right beyond me and beautiful church and church bells. So I've been living in Europe for about, oh gosh, like 17 years almost. So all basically my adult life here. Have 6 kids. My husband's German. And I've been running my own online business since about 2018, though it has taken a few iterations over the years. And, what I'm doing today, which we'll talk about a little bit more about virtual events, wasn't a thing when I was going to school. It wasn't a thing even a few years ago. I didn't even realize that this was something. And now I'm running virtual events as an agency and running my own virtual events.
Wow, amazing. So as you know, that I have a business as a speech therapist. I run my own private practice, and I'm thinking about speech therapists. So many speech therapists in private practice are looking for ways to attract more clients online. And how would hosting a virtual event or summit help them build that visibility and trust with potential clients?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there is a little bit of a thought behind it that you are actively growing your online presence, right? So, as a speech therapist, you're probably looking into growing your email list, growing your following on social media, and looking for different ways on how you can get people's attention. Because if you're like any other small business, it's kind of hard in the online space to get attention. There's so much going on. And there are a variety of ways. You see social media, like that's kind of what I call the long game. And it's not a bad way. We like social media. It's free. Everyone can use it. Everyone uses it. So social media is a great way to grow your presence. And I remember feeling very much against social media for many years. Like it was a bittersweet or love-hate, a necessary evil, I guess you could say, that we need to have social media, but I don't really want to be on it, but you kind of know that you need to do it. And so I was always looking for other solutions in my business. I was like, okay, it's social media. Yeah, it's free, but are there other ways that are a bit faster to get people to see me in this busy online space? The next way would be ads. right? So many of us look into, we have a Facebook page perhaps, or, if you're doing business to business, LinkedIn is a great place. Or that's where you have working professionals on LinkedIn. It's a great place to also, potentially run ads, but that costs money, right? So you have social media that costs time, you have ads that cost money, and both of them cost something, right? And normally we will have to pay one of those things, whether it's time or money. So there's kind of the third option, and that's where events come in. Events are something I call, you're creating an opportunity, right? You're creating a stage for people to see you, and you're creating a stage for people to encounter you and get to know you in a non-sales situation. I teach my clients how to do it organically. That means without ads, though you can use ads, because when I first began, I didn't have money for ads. And the experience that I had running ads was not a great experience because I made so many mistakes. I targeted the wrong people. And so for ads, for most beginning businesses, feels a little uncomfortable, or you just have bad experience, right? So events are a nice way to, I guess, get the best of both worlds. It's faster than social media because you're creating this opportunity. It's like a reason for people to get to know you, a reason for people to purchase or buy into what you're doing. And the way I walk my clients through this is to do it with strategic partners. So you're not doing it by yourself. So the next problem we have, and that's what we also see in social media, is if you are kind of talking about what you offer as a speech therapist and no one's really responding to your social media, it's probably that you just don't have a big enough audience on your social media. Like, of course, no one's really responding because they've already heard you say it the last 30, 40, 50 times, and your audience isn't growing. So the way that I walk people through running an event is we are looking at strategic partners, potential collaborations who aren't competitors with your business, but augment and complement what you're doing and bring their audience together with you. And you create this this momentum maker, I guess you could say, the stage, a reason for people to get to know you. And that's an event. So that's a virtual event in a nutshell, and it can really make a business very quickly. Just a real quick story of how it changed my life was just breaking into a new scene. I didn't know what I wanted to do in business, and I thought people need to know me before I do an event, right? That's the next thought. It's like, before I run some sort of event, I need to be someone. Otherwise, no one's going to show up.
Mm.
And I had followed. I was working through a program about marketing and sales, and one of the ways that they were walking us through was to actually launch our business using an event. So even though no one knew who I was, they said, no, actually, let's start backwards. You build an event, you create your audience, you create your potential clients, and then you launch your offer, you launch your business. And so I did that. I did it the backwards way. I wasn't sure what to expect. I did it not really knowing tech or really understanding any of those things, but I did my first summit, my first virtual event, and we brought in 1,000 registrants in just over a few days. That's like 1,000 new leads, 1,000 new potential clients. What would that mean for you? Like, for me, that completely changed my business. I went from struggling to like getting one lead or one potential person signing up to my email list every like a month, every 2 months, to like all of a sudden 1,000 in over a weekend. And then I realized this is the way that I've been looking for. Every other way has been so slow. Social media is tedious. Ads are too expensive. But this way really revolutionized my understanding of how to launch a business. So that was a
Wow.
lot.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. 1,000 leads. Because, when people run any event, really, like a workshop or a 5-day challenge, they usually do it on their own, don't they?
Yes.
Whereas you're leveraging other people's contacts as well through the summits. And so what I was curious about is, what are the sort of key elements, do you think, that as a speech therapist you should focus on when planning your first virtual event to make it engaging, making impactful?
Mm. That is a good question. The first thing would be to have some sort of online business system. Like you need a way that you are going to be able to track people and save them. So having some sort of customer management system, email system where people are trading their information, their email for the event that you're going to have. That's number one. And I think also the mindset that I am going to be online, like my business is going to be visible online, and I'm going to embrace that. I will be willing to publish on social media. I will be willing to do all those things because those are really important when you're venturing into the area of events. Everyone, I think one of the most common problems is, and perhaps this is the same with speech therapists, but coaches and different you have a very a heart of a teacher, right? So a lot of these careers, you are an expert at what you do, and you have a plethora of knowledge and information and a heart to teach and reveal new things to people. Unfortunately, you probably don't yet have the skill of marketing and sales. And those are really important skills as you're building your business and coming in the online space. So I would say, like, the number one thing is, yes, your teacher's heart is there and it needs to be released and doing workshops and events and really giving people those transformations that you can do. Stepping back and saying, okay, I'm going to embrace the skills of sales and marketing because that is so integral to the foundation of the business. And then start thinking, okay, how are we going to put the event together? The first thing I would say when you're thinking about event, you're over that mindset shift. You're like, I'm ready, Dani. I'm going to be an online business. I'm going to embrace growing the skills of marketing and sales. Even though I might feel a little odd about it, you're going to embrace it. You're going to walk forward in that path. You're not going to reject your teacher or your therapist hat. That's still there and it's still important. But I need you to have that skill of marketing and sales and learning, just being open to learn and experiment. The next is when we're talking about putting the event together, is not just thinking about your expertise, right? That's the number one problem I see with teachers. I mean, teachers in general, whether you're teaching speech therapy or you're a therapist in psychological issues, trauma therapy, whether any sort of teacher, that you tend to want to just talk about your expertise because you know it. You're so good at it. You have your signature sessions, you have all these things that you're great at. But when you're doing an event and you're creating an event for to attract potential new customers, and you don't have a huge audience yet, you need to put on the hat of the researcher and how to first serve the audience member and create an event for that audience member. And there are some things that you have to consider. The audience member might have other questions that need to be resolved before they're ready to hear your framework or your solution to their problems. They might have objections already about the cost of therapy. Like, is it really worth it for them to spend that money? Other problems that they might have would be, and you would know this better than me, Bev, like the common questions that a potential client might have would be maybe time restraints, or how is this going to fit in my time? What does that mean for our family? Like, there's a lot of blocks
lots
before
of objections, isn't it?
There's a lot of objections. And so I like to design events first with the objections in mind. I think, how can I think of all of the problems that they might have with me as a speech therapist or what I'm offering? Often it's maybe, I don't know, it could be financial, it could be timing. I mean, these are very common objections, like, is it really worth it? And then start creating the event to overcome those objections. The next way I'd look at creating an event for your person is thinking of other topics besides your topic. So, for instance, I call them magnetic topics, thinking of other topics that make your um, potential client, your new lead, go, that's interesting. I'm really interested in that. And I would show up for that topic. It might not be a deep dive into logotherapy and like all the tactics and tricks and deep dive into all the nitty gritty details, but it might be, helping your child succeed in the first year of school, right? And then you bring on someone, but perhaps it's not yourself, but someone else in that field of education who is also cultivating an audience of aware parents who are very invested into their children's development to come. And so those, I try to think of kind of beyond your topic, other topics for that audience member that would be still relevant and applicable, but kind of dance around the main topic, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
that.
I think sometimes, as therapists and coaches, we're used to caring and providing that service in a caring way, and all this sort of marketing stuff and seems a little bit like the things that very male orientated, I suppose, very kind of business type, and it's the kind of things that we weren't taught when we went to speech therapy school. We learned how to deal with our patients and our clients and not really talk about marketing and all this sort of business stuff. So how do you think these virtual events can kind of showcase your expertise and also connect with your ideal clients in a more personal and meaningful way? For example, if I was a speech therapist who had an expertise in, say, stammering, would I if I were to organize an event, would it be with other experts who are, stammering experts or not? How would I go around?
That's a really good question. So I would, so the event that you're describing there, if you were taking other experts on stammering, that's probably almost creating an event for the professional. And we need to think about the event for the parent who is seeing issues pop up in their children, or they might have other, and I don't know, stammering might come. I'm not in that field, so I don't know exactly when it comes up. But you could bring on people who are experts in, like, maybe anxiety or bullying within school, or other issues that could potentially be a problem for children that exhibit things like stammering, trauma therapy, a connection, or sorry, I don't even know what that is in English, but like the connection or relationship. I'm thinking in German
family
right now.
therapy or something like that.
Just like different. And I don't want to like. I don't want to. I wouldn't create an event all like on the problems, but you could be like, you could create an event on like the child who struggles, right, and helping them succeed in their school. And so you could create a whole event on the struggling child, or the child who is special, has a disability, and create an event around that, like as a haven for parents to come who have multiple different issues. I'm totally just throwing something together, but this would be kind of how I would look at it first and think, what are some of the broad topics that parent is interested in right now? And what phase of school or life is that child in? And what would that parent be interested in going to and attending? And you, as the speech therapist, or stammering, like specifically stammering therapist, would act as a host. And you're serving your audience this buffet of, basically you're serving with a servant's heart. This is why I call events is an act of hospitality. And you're creating the space, a safe space where people can come and they don't feel like they're being sold to. They're just feeling like they're served and they're educated And that this creates this effect where the attendee can arrive without without this wall of, is she going to tell me there's something wrong with me, or that I need to buy into something right now. And when you just create this event or the space of service, those barriers go down and they come very open. And when you act as a host, or you're interviewing different people, different authority figures in the space, you actually borrow the authority from the other teachers and therapists and influencers in that space as you conduct an interview, like how we're doing right now, right? Yeah. That people are going to look at us on stage, and whatever authority I have from my audience, or whatever authority you have from your audience, they're going to go, oh, well, Bev invited Dani to her stage. That must mean that I can trust Dani. And the same thing happens with your event. You don't really mean to do that psychologically, but that just happens. And so that's what's in it for you as the host, creating an event with other people. It lowers that barrier, and it speeds up this know, like, and trust factor, so that they can hear you and experience you working with other individuals and go, I really like what she says, what she stands for, how she's interviewing, how she's speaking. And you can always tie in those interviews, I do often interview style, to things that you've done in your practice. Like, oh yeah, I worked with someone once. Like, you can kind of mirror the speaker in their story and say, I've had that same experience with one of the clients that I worked with, a 6-year-old, and this was the success that we had, right? And so you can drop in little bits of those stories and proofs, without it feeling like, it just feels natural. It's not like, oh, I'm so amazing and you should listen to me. It's a lot more natural and giving.
Yeah. So tell me about a client that you work with, and the transformation of a summit had on her business or his business.
Let's my first client years ago, she is also a believer, and she wrote a book, and she wanted to launch her book. She had never earned any money in her business, didn't have an email list, nothing. But she really wanted to do an event based on friendship. She wanted to help women, after, I think her target audience was women 50 and over, try to revitalize friendships. And so she put on this event on her own. Like, she was not tech savvy. She had never done anything like this herself. And at that point, I wasn't running an agency. I was coaching her through the steps. So I just walked with her how she did it, told her what to do next. And she built out her event, and she brought in over 500 registrants, launched her new book on friendship, and earned her first 4 figures in her business. Like, she earned over that, and it was information. It's just an informational product. It wasn't a service, wasn't anything she did. So that was the first really big win. And that was years ago. So I've had many, many wins after that. But she was the first one that came to mind, because I saw a picture of her today and I was like, man, it was just such a good win on something that you wouldn't think you could earn money from even. It's just talking about friendship and connecting people. Another example was a client of mine maybe a year or 2 ago, and she was creating a membership, and she also had never earned any money in her business, had been trying all sorts of different things. And she had just some test people in a membership, but hadn't ever sold anything. And I was like, come, let's create an audience for you, and then launch your membership to this audience. So for her event, it was a homesteading event. So it was all about homesteading. She put together an event with 20 different speakers on homesteading, and then included in her event the access to, I believe, 3 months free access to her membership, and filled up her membership. Again, earned her first 4 figures on her information only business, and was able to keep on bringing in people to her new membership she launched. So these were they're little wins for some people, but they were huge for these women. And I know when I earned my first 4 figures selling information only at, like, I think it was a $27 product, I was like, oh my goodness, I can do this. Like I can do other things online besides, service. I can serve people and teach them and walk them through things, and it works.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, I mean, when I think about you, I think, my goodness, she's got 6 children. And I know that, one of your, am I right, in one of your children's been in and out of hospital quite a lot, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
And
our 10-year-old.
how do you juggle all that, sort of running a business and family life? What sort of advice would you give to someone who's like managing time, sort of time management and planning and hosting virtual events? What sort of advice would you give them?
It's very messy. My house is messy. There are just things that so the first thing is there are seasons for everything, right? There are been seasons in my business and my family life, seasons where I've spent more time focused on my family things that my business will have to suffer. It's just that's just the reality of the situation. This last year has been really hard for me in business, not just because we have a daughter who's going in and out of the hospital, but because I had a baby last year, and she was a difficult baby compared to my other ones. You think you have 6 children and they're all kind of the same. I've run my business for years with even having newborns, but this newborn needed a lot more of my time. So it was more of a struggle this year for me. And I've had to give myself a lot of grace and go to God and be like, all right, God, like, how do you want me to continue? What do I need to let go? What do I need to prioritize? So I would say for women, it's particularly, we have a particularly difficult, I guess, situation when you're running your own business, but there are seasons and there are things that are you're just going to have to not care about it. So for me, it's like, I would rather invest my time in my business than keeping my house spotless. I do have kids. They help tidy around the house, and I have some tidy times as well, obviously, but I have let that go. So it's not perfect. If people come to my house, they're just going to have to accept our family and me the way it is. And I take that time that I could be, I'm folding all my laundry perfectly and mopping floors. And I just say, well, that's just maybe another season, but I just don't have the time right now for that. I'd rather be working on my business. It brings me a lot more pleasure too than mopping the floors, right? But it wasn't always like that. I've had more time in other seasons where I could balance it a lot better. And I think balance is kind of a lie. Like, I don't think it exists.
I think it's a lie.
I don't think everyone's like work-life balance. I'm like, no. There's no balance. And then on top of that, you have hormones, right? As women, and you're going through all these different phases and all these, like, it's just like, give yourself grace as a CEO, as a founder, as an entrepreneur. I think as a woman, you need to really give yourself a lot of grace and know, like, slow growth is okay. Prepare for that. Prepare for all the times that it's not going to work out. And then embrace it to be your strength. Like, I try to look at all my situations and go, okay, my 6 kids are not going to be my excuse. My baby is not going to be my excuse. My messy house isn't going to be my excuse. Those are just going to be ways for me to hone and get more clear and more focused and more careful with the time that I have. And so I try to use all those things and say, all right, how can I get better? How can I become a better entrepreneur? How can I make decisions that are going to help me and not make me feel burdened? And it often, like, throughout the year, just leads me back to like, I'm feeling a bit stressed right now. What is it that I need to get rid of? What is it that's causing that? And having to simplify or cut something away or just take more time for myself. Like, so grace. And
I think one thing that I can really identify with you is also that you're quite techie, aren't you? You're into AI and other tech tools, and so am I. So how do you have time to do all that as well?
That's a good question.
Is it just a passion?
It's a passion. Yeah. It is, like, and I love how it is. It brings me so much joy just to sit and fool around and creating my own apps without code, to create automations, to connect things. Like, I love it. I wish I were, 20 years old without kids so that I could like sit and create all these different things. Like, for me, it's such a space where I can create and take pleasure. So I am in the process of like kind of going through my time and being like, where can I put that in my week so that it can bring me joy? Because learning things like that brings me so much joy. And I'm realizing as an entrepreneur, even though I might not necessarily be like, I'm building it into my business so that it helps give me more time. But it all takes time to learn, and the learning gives me joy, and I need the time to do that. So I have to build that into my schedule to make sure that I can still learn and have those joyful moments, not just like the business stuff. So
Yeah.
it's not as much as I would like, but I try to put in a bit, and I'd probably try to find as many reasons as possible that I need to do it for my business. Like, how can I do it and then make money from it? Or how can I do it and leverage it so it saves me time? I think that's kind of the way I look at the tech stuff.
Yeah, it's all experimenting, isn't it? I was saying to my husband that I was running ads to my workshop, and it's an SLO funnel, and he said, "Oh, what does that mean?" And
Yeah.
I was explaining all that to him, and I said, I basically covered my ad spend by 70% because of the offers inside the funnel. And
Exciting.
I don't know whether I explained it well enough to him.
He's probably like my husband. It's the same thing. I'm like, ooh, this is so cool. I found this. And he's like,
yeah.
Okay.
He doesn't get that, no. Anyway, it's been lovely chatting to you. And tell everyone how people can get in touch with you and how can they work with you.
Yeah, the best way is, I wouldn't say my website is there, but you can definitely contact me on risenevents.com. But just to like the daily updates, I'm on social media. You can find me on Facebook or on LinkedIn. My last name is Goeppert, if you're listening or watching. And I think on Facebook, I'm under Danielle, my full name. So Danielle. Just find me on there, connect with me. Or connect with me over on LinkedIn. Those are the two main places that I'm active. So you can follow me there, and my website, risenevents.com.
Okay, it's been lovely speaking to you. And as everyone knows, in the description, I've left the link to the blog. So we will be putting this live stream and the blog inside my podcast page, and you can find the link in the description. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks a lot, Dani, for coming on Women in Action.
Thanks so much, Bev. Bye.